Hi everyone, today I'm going to be sharing about Google Data Studio. But I'm going to first give you a quick overview about Data Studio, and then I'm going to take you through a tutorial on how to build a dashboard from scratch. But my goal today is not to make this a complicated data analysis session, pretend I'm a smart guy kind of a session. But my goal today is to make this as easy and as simple as possible, with a humble hope that it will help you to relate with your environment and probably give you some ideas on how you could implement Data Studio in your environment. Now, Google Data Studio is an online web based tool which is provided by Google for free. It allows you to convert and customize your data into interactive dashboards and beautiful reports. So instead of you looking or working with a spreadsheet that has a huge amount of data like the one we have on our left, you'll be able to customize your own dashboard similar to the one we have on our right. You can connect different data sources to build your dashboard and reports. Today I'm going to show you on how to build a dashboard using Google Data Studio from a Google Sheet or a live Google Responses sheet. Now this is the sample data from a Google Sheet that we will be using later on to convert and customize on Data Studio. And this is actually a sample data from a Google form. And this is how the dashboard will be displayed once we have completed it, which will provide us with an interactive searchable results. But before I jump into showing you on how to create a dashboard, I'd like to touch a little bit about dimensions and metrics. Now, dimensions and metric determine what data you get and how it is filtered and processed. If you're going to make a deeper analysis, it will be really helpful for you to know what they are and how you can use them. Now, dimensions are more of a descriptive field which you don't normally count, but you use them to filter or group your data. For example, I can create a chart and add a reference number, requesters, and approval status as dimensions to the chart. Then I can create a drop down list on my dashboard to filter my data. Now, metric measure your dimension and you can apply aggregation functions such as count, sum, or average. Now, in my example later, we'll be using metric to create scorecards like this to be able to create a dashboard that counts the total number of requests, the total number of requests that have been approved, the number of requests that are in progress or pending, and the number of requests that have been cancelled. So let's assume this is our data and we have a table with 10 rows of data. Now the scorecard that displays total is actually the count of the total number of requests. And similarly, the approved scorecard is set to count the total number of requests that have completed or approved. Now, don't worry if you don't completely understand it now or how it works, because I really feel that you will get a better understanding of what they are and how they work while you're working with the dashboard. Now, that is all I have on the overview, and let's start with creating a dashboard. So let's take a look at our actual data before we start creating our dashboard so you understand what the data looks like. Now this is our actual data. The name of our spreadsheet is PD request and the name of our worksheet is form responses 1. And we have got timestamp, email address, request number, department, cost title, date depart, date return, status, and cost. And I've also entered my email address on one of the data so I can show you how the filter by email setting works later on. And this is the dashboard that we're going to build that has scorecards of status and also with a few drop down lists for us to be able to filter our data. So let's go ahead to create our dashboard. I'm going to go to datastudio.google.com. And once you're in Data Studio page, you'll notice that we have various templates available and you can always click on the template gallery to view the list of other templates that are also available. But today we're going to be creating a dashboard from scratch. To start creating a dashboard or report, you can simply click on blank report. So I'm going to click on blank report. And the first thing that we have to do is to add a data source to our report. And to do this, you have to use a connector, and this is to get the data into your report. And you'll notice that all of the Google connectors are listed first, which includes Google Analytics, Google Ads, and Google Sheet. And if you scroll a bit further down, you'll find other third-party connectors as well. But I'm going to select Google Sheets for this report. So I'm going to click on Google Sheet. You can then select the spreadsheet that you wish to connect under Spreadsheet. In this case, I'm going to click on PD Request. And once you click on it, you'll be able to see the list of worksheets available within the spreadsheet. In this case, I have only got one worksheet. So I'm going to click on Form Responses 1. I'm going to leave the other two options as default, and I'm going to click on Add. And then I'm going to just respond Add to Report. Now you'll notice that a chart has been automatically added to our report canvas. And this is the canvas where we will be building our dashboard later on. Now you'll notice that there is a range of options at the top menu of the canvas window. Now the main one that we'll be using today is the insert menu. Or if you wish to add visualization to your report, you can always click on add a chart. Now that the chart has been added, we can always modify the chart using the panel on the right hand side of the canvas window. Now you'll notice that the data tab is currently selected. Now this lets us view the data source for the visualization, and it allows us to change the dimensions and metrics that is used for the visualization. And if you click on the Style tab, this lets us customize and work on the cosmetics on how it is presented so that it is much more beautiful and easy on eyes. And you have to remember to always have the chart selected, else you won't be able to see the option to change data or to customize the style. For example, if I click outside of this chart, you'll notice that the data and the style tab has disappeared. So remember to always have the chart selected or the object selected if you wish to customize or make adjustment to them. Now I'm going to start by naming the report to PD Request Dashboard. And then I'm going to change the grid size to 30. So let's go to View, Grid Size, and I'm going to set it to 30. Now this is so that it is easy for us to see the grid and arrange our objects within the canvas while building the dashboard. Now next, I'm going to arrange the table so that it sits nicely on the canvas according to how we want it. So I'm going to put it nicely there, and then I'm going to drag it and maximize it to the right. And then I'm going to pull it down to there. And then I'm going to add a few other fields to my chart. Now to do this, you can simply drag the list of fields available from the Available Fields column on the right. So I'm going to add request number, and I want it to be displayed at the first column. So I'm going to add it under dimension. So as soon as I add it there, you'll notice that request number has been added. And then I'm going to add timestamp. And then I'm going to add course title. But I'm going to add course title. I want it to be after the email address column. And then let's add date depart, date return, and the last one will be status. Now you'll notice now that the chart shows us a lot of other data as well, where it is now presenting a much more meaningful data. Now let's make a few more adjustments to the data tab to make it much more meaningful. So I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to remove date depart from date range dimension. This was automatically added, so I don't need that. And then I'm going to go to metric, and I'm going to remove the record count. I don't need this to be displayed in our chart, so I'm going to remove record count. And then I'm going to check to make sure that the chart is being sorted according to the request number under sort. Okay, so I want it to be sorted according to the request number because we've got request number data. Now I'm going to make some changes under dimension. Now I'm going to change the request number. I'm going to rename the request number to reference number. You can always rename the field on the chart by simply clicking on the edit icon right beside the field. So I'm going to click on edit. I'm going to name it reference number. I'm going to click outside of the. Now you can always change the label or description name of the field in Data Studio, but it doesn't actually change the actual source field. Now let's take a look. If I click on the edit again, although we have changed the name from request number to reference number, if you notice the source field still remains as request number. Now we would usually change the name so that it is much more meaningful to the viewers or the readers. Now I'm going to change timestamp to request date. And then I'm going to set the type to, now currently it is displaying the date and time, but I don't need the time to be displayed on the chart. So I'm going to click on, we've changed timestamp to, we've renamed it to request date. And let's click on type. Let's click on date and time and choose date only. And then I'm going to rename email address to requester. And then I'm going to change status to approval status. And then that's all we've got to do with the chart. And we can simply double click on the vertical border. Once we've done, we can just double click on the vertical, any of the vertical border, and the table will be automatically sized. Okay, notice that it has now automatically resized. Now that we have customized the data, let's go ahead and change the style to beautify it so that it is much more easy on eyes. So let's go to Style tab, and under Table Header, I'm going to leave the header font color as it is, but I'm going to change the font size to 12. I would prefer Roboto. And then under Table Colors, I'm going to change the header background color to yellow. And then under cell border color and odd row color, I'm going to leave it as it is. But under even row color, I'm going to change it to light gray to improve the readability of the chart. Okay, so and then under table labels, I'm going to leave everything as it is. Now under table body, I would like to untick row numbers. I don't want the row numbers to be displayed here because I've got reference number. So I'm going to untick row numbers. And then I'm going to tick wrap text so that it displays the entire cell contents. Okay. Now I'm going to leave everything as default under table footer. Now under missing data, it is currently showing If there's no data on the chart, it will show null. And for me, I feel that it looks more like an error, and I would prefer for it to just show dash or hyphen instead of null. And then I'm going to center align all of our column. Okay, I'm going to center align them. And so that is all we want to do with our chart. And now let's go ahead with creating the scorecards for our status. Now, before creating a scorecard, I'm going to first add a background so that our scorecards are more visible. So I'm going to go to insert, and I'm going to insert a rectangle, and I'm going to place it right on top. And then I'm going to set the background to black color. And I'm going to set the transparency to 40% for now so that the grids are visible for us to arrange our scorecards. Now, there are a total of 5 scorecards that we will be creating. So the first one would be a scorecard that counts the total. So to add a scorecard, go to Insert, select Scorecard, and let's just place it there. And then I'm going to change the metric to status because that is the field containing the data that I want to process or count or filter. So I'm going to drag status to metric. And then I'm going to change the display name to total. And then I'm going to set the aggregation to count so that it counts the data. Now, as I've said earlier, you can always change the label or the name of the description in Data Studio, but it doesn't actually change the actual source field. Yeah, so the source field, as you can see here, is still status. Okay, and then I'm going to remove everything from the date range dimension. Now we're done with the data tab, and let's move on to the style tab to customize how it is displayed. So under primary metric, I'm not going to do anything there. Under missing data, it is now set to show no data. Again, I feel this may look like an error. Okay, so I'm going to set it to show 0 instead of no data. And then I'm going to change the font color to white. And I'm going to change the font size to 48. And I'm going to center align all of it. And then I'm going to change the background color to blue. And I'm done with the style. I'm going to now adjust the box size. Okay. Just so that the text fits nicely on the box. And then I'm going to place it right there. Okay, right there. Okay. Now we're done with the scorecard that shows the total number of requests. Okay. Let's take a look at our data status, and then let's filter our data. And no, we don't have to filter. The total count is 154, which includes the header. So the actual data count is 153. So if you take a look at this, The total count is 153. Okay. Now let's create a scorecard that displays the approved request. And we can simply copy and paste the total scorecard and then make some changes so that we don't have to recreate it from scratch. So I'm going to right click, copy, and then I'm going to paste. I'm going to just put it right beside it, just like that. And then I'm going to go to first change the style. So I'm going to change, the only thing that I need to change in the style tab is the background. And I'm going to change the background to green. And then I'm going to go back to the data tab and I'm going to change the name to approved. Okay. But since this is still displaying the total number of requests, we need to add a filter so that it only counts the total number of requests that have completed. Now to add a filter, you can simply click on add a filter. So I'm going to click on add a filter. And then I'm going to name the filter as approved filter. And then I'm going to select a field and I'm going to select status. And then I'm going to set the condition as equals to. And the value would be complete. Okay, the value will be complete. So I'm going to click save. Now notice that the approved scorecard that we have just created is now only displaying the total number of requests that has been approved. So let's go back to the spreadsheet. Okay, and let's filter. So I'm going to clear all and just select complete and click OK. And let's select. So the total count is 140, including the header. So the actual total count for the data would be 139. So let's go back. So the total data count is 139, which is correct. Now let's create a scorecard that displays the pending request. And again, we can simply copy and paste the total scorecard and then make some changes. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it there. And then I'm going to first go to style tab and change the background color to orange. Okay. And then I'm going to go to data tab and I'm going to change the name to, under metric, I'm going to change the name to pending. And then I'm going to add another filter for pending so that it only counts the total number of requests that are in progress. So I'm going to click on add a filter. And notice that the filter that we have created for the approved scorecard is still there. So we have an option to select, but we don't have to select that. We're going to be creating a new filter. So let's click on create a filter. And I'm going to name it pending filter. And I'm going to select status and set the condition as equals to. And then I'm going to type in progress. Okay, so that it counts only that value. And then I'm going to hit save. Now notice that the pending scorecard that we have just created is now only displaying the total number of requests that are pending. Okay. So now let's go ahead and create a cancel scorecard. And the first thing that I want to do is to change the background to red. And then I'm going to go to the data tab and change the metric name to cancelled. And then I'm going to add a filter, a new filter, create a filter, and I'm going to call it Cancel filter. Select status, set a condition to equals to, and the value will be cancelled. And I'm going to hit save. Okay, we've got the number there. Now the last scorecard that we will be creating is the expenditure scorecard. Okay, I'm going to copy it again. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to drag to make it slightly bigger than the rest because we are counting the cost. And then I'm going to change the background color to purple. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the data tab, and this time we don't need total. We're going to be using the status field anymore because we're going to be counting the cost. So I'm going to be replacing, I'm going to drag cost to replace the status. Okay. And then I'm going to change the name to, I'm going to type in PB expenditure, and then I'm going to check that to make sure that the aggregation is sum, and then I'm going to change the type from number to currency, and I'm going to just select US currency just for this demo. Okay, and we're done. And then I'm going to add a filter so that it only shows the expenditure for the PD request that has been approved. Now this is showing the entire cost for everything, for those that have been cancelled or pending. So we need to add a filter so that it only shows cost for those that have been approved. So I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to create a filter. So this would be expense. And then I'm going to select a field, status, set a condition equals to, and the value would be complete. Okay, if I hit save now, notice now it is showing 258. If I hit save, the value will change. Now we have an expense scoreboard that only displays the expenditure for the request that has been approved. Okay, and we have successfully completed our scorecards, and we can go ahead with creating a drop down list to filter our data. Now there are a total of 3 drop down lists that we will be creating: a requested drop down, an approval status drop down, and a request number drop down. So let's create the requested drop down. Now to create a drop down list, you can click on insert and select drop down list. Now I'm going to first adjust the size. Okay, let's adjust it a little bit. And then I'm going to customize the style. So let's go to the style tab. The text, I'm going to leave it as it is, but I'm going to change the size to 18. And then I'm going to go to the background, and I'm going to change the background to yellow. And then I'm going to set the border radius to 10 so that we get a rounded border which makes it to look more like a button. Okay, now that we have completed the cosmetics of our drop down list, let's add the data that we want to filter. So let's go to data, And I'm going to remove everything from date, range, dimension. I don't need that. Now under control field, I'm going to change the name to requester, and we're done. Okay, so we've done with our requester drop down list. Now the second drop down list that we're going to create is the approval status drop down list, and we can simply again copy and paste, and let's place it there. And then we don't have to do anything to do with the styling. Let's go to the data tab, and now let's drag the status to the control field to replace the requester. And then let's change the name to approval status. And now the last drop down list would be the request number drop down list. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to place it there. And I'm going to go to the data tab, and I'm going to drag the request number to replace the approval status. And that's it. We've completed our drop down list, and you can always select the drop down list and filter your data based on your preferable output. So let's give it a try. So I'm going to click on view, and I'm going to click on requester, and I'm going to select employee 51 and click only to show employee 51. And notice that it is only showing data that relates to employee 51. And let's do another filter. I'm going to only view those with in progress. So I'm going to click in progress. Okay. Now our filter is working as expected. So I'm going to show all again. And we're done with our drop down list. Now the next thing to do is to add a title to our dashboard. Okay, so let's click on edit again, and then click on insert, and I'm going to insert a text, and then I'm gonna maximize it to the left and right, just like that. And then I'm going to type in the dashboard, and then I'm going to change the font color to white, and I'm going to change the size to 28, and I would prefer Ubuntu to be the font type. And let's click on bold, and let's center align. And we're done with our title. Now we're almost done. We have one last thing to finish to complete the dashboard. It doesn't really matter, but just for the cosmetics sake, I'm going to click on the rectangle that we have created earlier, and I'm going to adjust the transparency back to 100 so that our scorecards are much more visible. And we're done. Okay. Now, if you want this dashboard to filter the data by current viewer's email address, you can use the filter by email setting. Okay, you can always go to resource, click on manage added data sources, and you can click on edit and click on filter by email, and you need to check this filter data by viewer email checkbox, and then you can click on select email field and click on the email address field to select, and then just respond allow to this, and let's click done, and let's click close. Now you will now notice that it is only showing or displaying the data that is associated with my email address because I'm now signed in to Data Studio using the same email address. So let's take a look at my email address. I've got aznan7879 at Gmail, and it is also displaying aznan7879 at Gmail. Now that's the data that I showed you earlier. Okay, this is the data that it is displaying. Now, similarly, if my email address or the email address of the dashboard viewer is not available in the email address field, then we won't be seeing any data. Okay, so let's remove the filter by email setting. So let's go back to resource, manage added data sources, and let's click on edit, and let's click on filter by email, and I'm gonna untick this filter data by viewer email, and I'm gonna click done, and I'm gonna click close, and we've got all our data now. So that's all I have for this session, and thank you so much. Okay, now there's many different ways to create dashboard and report, and there are many different ways for you to use dimensions and metric to filter and process your data. It's all up to what you want to achieve, and the whole idea of this video is to take you through a complete journey of completing a dashboard so you understand a few basics and some key concepts. Okay, thank you, happy learning, and thank you for watching.